Hey, welcome to How to Write a Novel. So I'm in Mundy Park in Coquitlam, BC, and I've gone off the path, off the trail, just into some weird woods. So we'll see how this goes. There's a bit of a slight man-made path. Should be enough to go through. This is kind of what's cool about moving to different Airbnbs is I never heard of this fucking place, Mundy Park. Turns out it's a pretty big fucking park. It's really nice. It's like a big forest. But I just happened to be moving to an Airbnb in Coquitlam this month. And my friend was like, hey, that's right by this place, Mundy Park. You should go. It's awesome. But I just thought I'd do kind of a quick update about sort of the whole driving force of this podcast has been the idea of never stop. Just work every day, even if it's the tiniest little bit, just to keep the chain, because as long as you do that, you will eventually succeed. But if you stop, that's the first step toward giving up. You can't give up if you never stop, So even if it's just the tiniest little bit of work every day, just to keep it up. Now, that being said, I've been doing this for half a year at least, maybe more than that now. Where I missed an occasional little day here and there. But basically, I've been writing every day for at least 6 months, 7, whatever. And I got a big chunk of book done, and it's been going pretty great. And I guess the idea of this philosophy of even if you only write one little thing, even if you move a sentence and then move it back, even just if you do something, as long as you sit down and interface with your book every day. I guess the idea is that that this technique is not necessarily for the times when everything's going great, when you just sit down and you write a bunch of stuff and everything's flowing. When things are going well, you don't need a plan. You don't need any kind of strategy. You just do it. It just works. The real benefit here is when things aren't going as good, just to get you through the rough waters, to get you through the choppy times, to just keep inching forward. But at the same time, since writing a book, it's such a long process, it's going to span a large piece of your life, that I guess what I wanted to talk about this time is that eventually, just because of the normal ebb and flow of life, just the normal shifts in yourself and how you feel and just the world around you and you yourself and yada yada, sometimes things are just gonna fail. And I'm talking all fatalistically here. This is only the third day that I haven't worked on the book. It's only been 3 days. It's really not that big a deal, except that, as I've said before, this is what has always happened in the past. Yeah, it's only a day, it's only 2 days, it's only 3 days, then it's a week, then it's 2 weeks, then it's fucking 5 years, This is the beginning of the end. This is letting this little stoppage happen is the only way that this book will not be completed. But on the other hand, since everything is a contradiction and, there's always two sides to everything and there is no distinct set path for how life is supposed to work, because of the long timeline and just the changes in life and whatever, it's still as realistic as I think this plan is, as good as I think it is, this advice to just do even just a little bit of work every day. It's not realistic to follow the same pattern and the same path every day forever. It's just not. People do it. There are people that train themselves to just, here's my goal, here's my path, here's how I'm gonna be, here's what I'm gonna do. And they just do it and they never stop. But I'm not that kind of person, and I don't particularly admire that, it's just a new kind of rut. It's just a new way to, just to not think about your situation and not to pay attention to how you feel on the inside. It almost seems like a fear response of I don't want to unravel the complexities of this situation, so I'm just going to keep my head down, keep my eyes forward, and just keep doing my little pattern and never stop. Because basically what happened here, so it's a bunch of different things that have kind of been piling up, where one of them is that I met a tough part of this book. So in my rough notes, I had this book split up into 4 major sections. But I realized that the middle part is way bigger, 2 or 3 times bigger than all the other ones. So I got to this point in the story where it's kind of like a big dramatic beat that I've been kind of building up to. Which, you know, is like exciting on the one hand, because it's like, yeah, these are the moments you kind of, this is what you live for, you know, this is the thing. But at the same time, it's like, it's a little intimidating because I don't want it to be bad. You know, this is a part I particularly want to be careful with. Because this is kind of the point of fiction, to me, is to, elicit emotions in people. To give them a feeling. And this is one of those big moments. This should be a moment that hopefully hits people. And that's what I like about novels in particular, is they can be, you know, they're so long and you spend so much time with a character. You can really spend a long time setting the trap, you know, like, or what's a better way to put it? Building a puzzle. Like, you can build a more complicated scenario and a more complicated situation so that when it pays off, the emotion is more complicated. But of course, because it's more complicated, you know, you got to be more careful. There's more pieces. It's more delicate. And basically, it's this part in the book where there are just a handful of people from, my main character is a space alien, and there's a handful of people from her species on this alien space station. But she never interacts with them. She doesn't hang out with them. And this is where she finally admits that the reason why they don't hang out with each other is because culturally they value not lying to each other. They can lie to an outsider, but they can't lie to each other. And the reason they're stranded on this space station is because their planet blew up. So, you know, they're just kind of not dealing with that. They're not facing it. They're not ready to talk about it and to accept it. And if they talk to each other, they'll have to, you know, like there's nothing else. They can't just talk about something else, you know, they can't be disingenuous about it. None of them are ready. And even just admitting this to her kind of alien advisor is going to be real upsetting, you know, even broaching the subject this much. So I wanted to really make sure that I write this scene, again, like the first draft, whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be sentence by sentence. It can be a little shitty. But I need the like pace and the feel and the fucking timbre and timbre of it to be right. And I realized that it's such a big moment that I should split, like after this moment, I should split to a new section, like split it into 5 parts. And this is where this part ends and a new part will begin. So that was kind of wearing on me because it's just like, just don't want to mess it up. At the same time, there was this crazy heat wave that hit. It's kind of past now, but it was so bad for like a week that even at like 3:30 in the morning, it was still like t-shirt and sweating weather. It was crazy. Going outside in the daytime was like a death sentence. It was just insane. So my schedule really slipped because it just didn't make sense to go outside in the day. So I slept through the day and then was up all night. And then the little heat wave passed, but I figured I should stick with this because, I mean, it's not pleasant to be outside in the summertime anyway. You know, it's so creepy to me when you see people like sunbathing and tanning. It's like, dude, that thing is a death sphere. I guess I'm an especially pale person, but still, it seems like a bad idea. Seems like a cancer-y idea. But also, my flight, I'm going to Montreal just in a couple of days now, but at the end of the month, you know, my flight was to Montreal. And to get a cheap flight on a Friday, I'm actually leaving Thursday night. which I like. I like to stay up late. It's easier for me to stay up late than it is to get up early. It's impossible for me to get up early. It just ruins my whole life. It's one big reason school and jobs just don't work for me. Like, I can't get up at 7 a.m. I can't. I would rather die. Well, no, I wouldn't rather die. I'd rather be homeless. I'd honestly rather be homeless than have to do that every day. So I actually thought it was like kind of a fun idea. Like, cool, my fucking flight leaves at 10:30 at night, gets into Montreal at 8 in the morning. Because that's the other thing, flying from the West Coast to the East Coast, I'm gonna lose 3 hours or so, maybe 4 hours. So it's tough. If you fly in the day, by the time you get where you're going, like you've lost so many hours, it's late at night. This is gonna be perfect. It's just gonna be great. It's gonna be a fun adventure to fly through the night. I'm gonna get to Montreal in the morning. It's just great, nice and cool. But still not something you wanna do just out of the blue. So I'm like, I should just maintain this staying up all night thing so it'll be easier for me to stay up all night when I fly. And it's been going pretty well, but now that the heat wave's done, my body doesn't necessarily want to do this. Like, it's pretty severe where I'll wake up at 4 or 5 p.m. and go to sleep at 7 or 8 in the morning. And I always wake up feeling groggy and weird. I feel it right now. It's just like, this doesn't feel natural. This isn't right. My body is telling me like I've been doing this for a couple of weeks now, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This isn't right. This is weird, It's one thing to sleep in, but to like noon maybe, not till fucking 5 p.m. So first, the heat wave was really making me just not want to write. Like, to me, writing, the environment that feels natural that I want to do is, I never enjoy writing at home. I like to leave the house and go to a coffee shop or something and just be somewhere else to delineate those spaces in my life. And ideally, as much as I complained about the rain and shit, if it's kind of a chilly day or a little overcast and you just get all cozy in a coffee shop with your nice little coffee, and it's like, yeah, that's the environment of writing, Where when it's all sunny and bright and hot, I just don't want to do it, It's like I'm hot, I'm sweaty, it's humid, it's muggy. I don't want to think, I don't want to sit down and think about a book. I just really don't. Like, my physiology is just like, this is not the time, man. Don't do this. It's an especial amount of pushing. An especial term. But then the heat wave passed a bit, but now it's the staying up all night thing, which just also feels weird because it just feels unnatural, and cities just die at night, man. Like, even when I lived in New York, even Manhattan is just, at night, there's really nowhere to go. Like, there's an occasional little diner or a coffee shop. Here in Vancouver, there might be some coffee shops, but you literally need to go to the heart of downtown to find something that's open. It's a little easier in Toronto because some of the Tim Hortons are 24-hour. But in general, if you're up all night, you're just sort of drifting around in Nowheresville. There's nowhere to go. There is no little place to just go sit and do some writing. So I'd wake up, just, head out, but just as things are all starting to shut down, then the long nighttime where everything's closed, and then by the time I get home, it's sort of weird morning time, and I'm exhausted and wiped feeling and just need to go to bed. And just all these things, it's just all these little things that are just pushing on me day after day after day. To the point where I really did hit a point where it's like, look, just write one sentence a day. Literally just write one sentence a day. And that worked. I mean, I got through that tough part, that part I was trying to write that I wanted to be good. I got through it, because the thing with writing a sentence a day is you're probably not going to write a sentence a day. It's like, that's the entry point to make it seem easy to your brain, to not push your brain too hard. You're like, okay, I know you're weird and kind of exhausted and it's really hot out and you don't want to do this, but just one sentence. And then once you sit down, get your mind into gear, read back what you wrote recently to remember where you fucking are. Like, all right, I'm going to write my one sentence. You're probably going to write more than one sentence, although some days I only wrote one sentence, but I got through that part. But then all these different pressures pushing on me from the different directions, the heat, the weird sleep schedule, I finally just said, fuck it. You know what? Like, I feel safe in stopping for a fucking bit because I'm just tired of fighting it. I'm like, fuck this. This is just ridiculous. Like, when I got to the point that I was writing one sentence a day and it's still pushing, something in my body is still pushing to stop. Like, beyond just the sort of resistance feeling of the generalized everyday feeling of like, oh, this is uncomfortable and hard to do, creative work and facing down, the idea of, success, the idea of failure, the whole thing. This is something else, just something deeper in me that's like, just take a rest. Just stop it. Why are you pushing, you fucking maniac? Stop being so crazy. And I just eventually am like, yeah, fuck it. Because, like I said, I'm leaving for Montreal in like 3 days. Then, when I get to Montreal, I can get my sleep schedule back to a relatively normal cycle. I'll be in a new place. I'm really excited to go back to Montreal. I already know, like, my plan. I'm going to go to Mount Royal basically every day. That's nice. Going to bring my laptop. I'm going to work on the Roger Swan documentary I mentioned. Going to work on my Last of Us audiobook. Going to work on the novel. I had a really productive time in Montreal last summer because, this was like the pattern of just like, there's not a ton of woods and natural stuff out there, not as much as there is here in BC, but Mount Royal's real good and it's right in the middle of town. It's really easy to get to. I've got an Airbnb that I love booked for 2 months. So cheap too. It's only $19 a night because Montreal is just a cheap town. And I got a room with a private bathroom and like, oh, it's beautiful, man. It's gonna be great. So basically I'm letting myself off the hook for this week. You know, it's been 3 days I haven't written. It's gonna be 3 more days till I get to Montreal, and I'm just letting it go. It's like, just, there's a point where my good intentions and my little plan and my strategies, there's just too much pushing up against them. So I guess that's all I really wanted to say is just if you're working on something and you're, trying to write a book or whatever project you might be working on, and it starts to go south, it starts to get a little shaky, don't worry about it too much. These things happen, man. It's just the natural rhythms of life. It's like, as much as I stand by my write every day advice, and I do think it's a good plan, if it falls down a little bit here and there, I think that's just natural. I think that's just how things are. And it's important not to use the failure of writing every day as an excuse to stop altogether. That's when this plan could be a negative. You could take the well-meaning idea of writing every day, but then use it as an excuse to stop, because you could be like, well, I stopped writing every day. I guess I fucked up. I guess fuck all of this, where this is where, it's just, again, you just got to finish by any means necessary. And if you stop for a little while, this is when you need to disregard the plan. Don't use the plan against yourself. Don't shame yourself. Don't feel bad about it. Just start again. Just start again. I got my plan planned. I'm going to start again when I get to Montreal. Going to start again in a few days. Then the plan is back on. But I guess the real plan, the real thing is, like, real life is too big and too complicated and too complex for a single plan, for a single strategy. So yeah, if you do get derailed, if you do get stopped, forget about the plan. Have a new plan. I'm going to return to the plan. When I get to Montreal, I'm going to be back on my work every day plan. But I'm not going to let the temporary failure of that plan dictate a failure of the entire project. All right, so that's enough. Next time I do a podcast, I will be in Montreal, I'm guessing. For Song of the Day, when did I hear about this band? This band Fever Ray. It must have been when I lived in New York. I think it was. The girl I dated in New York showed me the video for When I Grow Up. But then I went to Montreal in 2009, so I would have heard about them in 2008. In 2009, I went there, and I was listening to this album a lot. So this makes me think of Montreal. And I just stumbled upon it again the other day, and I found out there's a new Fever Ray album that came out last year in 2017 that I downloaded but haven't listened to yet. But the first Fever Ray album It really is amazing. Like every time I go back to it, every couple of years I'll go back to it, and there's a new song that I just kind of didn't pay that much attention to, because there's the big ones. There's like, oh, this, and this. These 3 or 4 are my favorites, so I didn't listen as much to the other 5 or 6. But then as I go back, I'll listen to those deeper cuts. And that happened again just the other day. I put on this album, and track 3, Dry and Dusty. This is so good, and I just never paid attention to it before. And it's like, man, how can this one album just keep paying off for a decade? It's fucking awesome. What a good album. So let's finish with that. Dry and Dusty by Fever Ray. When we talk next, I'll be in Montreal, and I'll be off my little week-long sabbatical. It's been like 3 weeks that I've gotten almost nothing done. But even that, it was like neat. Like even that period where I was literally writing 1 sentence a day, I still got through a chapter, a really hard chapter. Like even that pathetically tiny amount of work is still valuable and still adds up. But eventually the wave crested, the wave broke. This week, I ain't doing shit. But I'll see you next week when I am. Okay, adios.